This is the solution for simple like separation of concerns example. Let's answer these questions, but this time we will use the code that we have here. We have a code, we have a project called Week06 Office Temperature is available on my GitHub as well. Now let's go and navigate and see the questions if we can like find the solutions here on this code. The first one is what layer would we like read the value from the database? Now remember that we have different layers, and the layer that's responsible for reading data is the data access layer. And you all can see that here. If you just go here, you will see that, okay, I have a package called data access layer. And for answering the name of the class, for example, a suggested name of the class, always like name it what a relevant name, but always remember that it's good to add a DB word. This would help us that, okay, this is a database class, or this database gonna like read something from the database. Now, the second question, what layer would contain the values 0 and 100? And what would be a good name for this class? Now, take it as for granted. Always remember that anytime that we need to check data, there is something like we call it as a business logic. All business logic should go to the service method or service class. And this here we have services. And inside it, we have something called office temperature service. And here, if you just scroll on the code, you will find that, okay, I'm doing this here, which is like I'm checking the temperature is either 0 or it's either 100 inside this class. Now, I will go over the code like more in depth, but right now let's just answer these questions. And as you can see, yeah, like the business logic always gonna be checked inside the service, not inside the servlet, for example. And yeah, the third one is what layer would contain the values 8 and 22. This is the same thing. If you scroll down, you will see that we are checking the data for 18, like if the temperature is greater than 18 or less than 22. And where we are checking this, is it inside the servlet or service or database? We are checking that inside the service because this is like a service or a business logic, and all business logic should be handled inside services, and database related things are going to be inside the database, and anything that we need to prepare for the JSP, we will, and handling the upcoming request going to be for the servlet. And the JSP is just for viewing the database, viewing the dynamic data that, or generating the dynamic HTML. Now, let's see number 4. Number 5, okay, number 4, okay, where is the error message located? If you still remember that in week 4, we did some minor changes to our code in the demo. And one of the changes that we say that we don't need to write the error message inside Java. We need to write the error messages inside the JSP files. Now, if you go to the JSP file, you will find that the error is here, okay? And now I'm conditionally rendering this error. If the test is true, then I will show you this. If the test is false, then I am not going to show you the error message. But we are not sending the content of the error message from the servlet. We are just sending the condition that is either going to render that or not rendering that. But still, the data that we are sending, like the error message, it's part of the HTML, and therefore, like, I don't send it as a variable. I have it already in the JSP. Okay. Now, where is the logic to display the error message? Now, the logic, that means who gonna decide is like conditionally rendering that. And this is the logic is here. And any if statement, it's like a part of the logic. But now maybe you say, okay, why we don't have that inside the service method or service package? Because this is actually a logic that is related to the JSP or the view, and we don't need to put that inside the service because the JSP couldn't talk with the if we go back here, the JSP couldn't go and talk to the service just for like conditionally rendering like an error message or something like that, because we have a JSTL, and using JSTL I can like do some very, very small let's say if statement and logic statement inside the JSP page. Okay. What the second question? Okay, which class sets the Boolean value for the error message? Now, if we go here, you remember that I'm testing a condition, and based on this condition, I'm either displaying this or not. We say that this is the responsibility of a servlet, And if we go to the class called servlet here, you will see that I'm setting the value here and sending this value to the JSP page, because here I'm going to the JSP page. That means, yeah, the servlet would be responsible for setting any data that we will send to the JSP. Okay. However, the problem is not with setting the value. The servlet sometimes is going to set a value, but then the servlet say, okay, from where should I get this value? And this is the problem started, and therefore we're going to ask the service, and then we're going to ask the data access to get that data. But at the end of the day, yes, the data will be like back to this location, and then I will set the variables that JSP needs inside the servlet class. And as you can see here, I'm setting the in range in the servlet, and then the servlet or the JSP is making use of that. Okay, now here we have red and the black colors would be stored in a CSS file with the CSS classes .warning and .normal. Where's the logic that decides? Now, again, anytime that you feel this is logic should be part of the view, therefore we can see that here. Here we are using a ternary operator. It's a very simple ternary operator. We are saying if this is a true, then give me the value normal. If the value is a false, then the value should be error. And we are setting this for a class. Like this is how we set a class value normally for like any CSS file. However, right now I'm just not sure if the value is normal or error. And therefore I'm using the in range. If it's true, then I'm going to go with normal. If it's false, I'm going to go with error. Now, if you need to recap these things, they are available under week 4. And here in week 4, in page like 28, 29, and 30, we did see that. But the problem, like these things, you don't need to, like, let's say, memorize them. You just need to use them. And the more you use them, the more that you will like still remember them, because there is no point actually of remembering every single one of them. Okay. However, it's better to like always have while you are writing the code. For example, this is what we are talking about. Like if this is true, you will see S1, and if it's false, you will see S2. Okay, and this is what we are doing here. We are passing a Boolean value, and then we are saying, okay, if this is true, see normal or false. Okay. Now let's run the code and let's see what's really happening right now here. And by the way, like if you are wondering for the CSS file, we have the CSS file here. Okay, like it's called office temperature.css. It's very simple. Okay, and the database, I have it here, which is office temperature text file, which is like just have a text file that has a number, which is 21. And if I run the like this right now, you will see that the temperature is 21. Now, if I change the data here, I say 25 and go here and just refresh the page, you will see that the temperature now, the color has changed. Now it's red. We are saying that office temperature is out of range. Now let's say that it's 18 and 18 is in range, I think. Yeah. Let's say this and let's run it. And you see like the temperature now is 18, but now it's say 15 and run it. And now the temperature is out of range, and now we have the error message. Now, to understand how this code is working, we have two ways. I'm going to show you the two ways. One way is the way that I do by myself, and there's another way, which is actually we can use the debugging mode here on Netbeans. Now, let's start with my way, which is like, or most people do that by by nature, yeah, which is web.xml. And here, like to understand any project that you first time you see it, just go and see what is the welcome file. The welcome file here is going to be office temperature as a URL, and this is the URL office temperature. And who is responsible for handling this? You will see that, okay, it's office temperature servlet. Now, if we go to office temperature servlet here, you will see that, okay, I have do get and do post. Inside do post, I have nothing to do. It's empty. That means my logic basically is here inside the do get method. Now, what I'm doing in the do get method, I am setting two values. The first one is office temperature model. Okay, like I'm setting an office temperature model, and I'm setting another value, which is a Boolean value called in range. And these values that I'm setting, I'm sending them to the office temperature. But remember, we say that we have a problem here because the servlet couldn't read the data from the database. I have a file now, how the data is being handled. Let's see this here. Okay. Now, what we have a servlet, and the servlet gonna go and send the request to the JSP. But we need to set two values, one office temperature model and one in range variable. Now, let's see the first one, how we can do the office temperature model. The office temperature model gonna start from the servlet. Now, the servlet knows that this is need to be read from a database or from a text file. Therefore, the servlet is not capable of doing that. We will ask the service to do that for us. Now, let's see if the service, like remember, this is the flow that the servlet doesn't know to do that. Gonna ask the service to do that. Now, the services, if we see here, like inside the servlet class, we are still on the servlet. You will see that, okay, we are making an object of type office temperature service, and we are asking the service to get current office temperature. Okay, that means if I go to the like the service class, you will see this method there. Let's go to the service class, and you will see that we have this method here, which is get current office temperature. That means, yes, we are at the servlet is asking the service for getting the data. But remember that now the service is going to say, okay, can I handle that by myself, like by itself or not? Now, the service, the problem that they could do a lot of business logic except reading from the database. That means, but now we need to read it from the database. That means the service gonna ask the database layer or database access layer to help us reading from the database. And are we doing this here? And if we look, yes, we are doing that. We are making a class or an object of the type office temperature database. And after we do that, and we are passing the path, like the path of the file that we need to read, and we are asking this method to do that for us. And let's see if this method inside the database class, what it's gonna do, which is get office temperature. We will go to here, and this is the method. This method is simply reading the file, and then we are parsing that to integer, because remember that we have 21, 22, 23. It's going to be string, but we need this to be an integer. And then we are constructing a model of office temperature. Remember that we have data access. Here is the model. And our model is very simple. It's just having one variable called office temperature. Okay. Now we are constructing the model and we are returning that to the service. Again, what we are doing here, database going to read the data, the same data. Okay, now because the database was able to read the data or to fulfill this request, what we are going to do, the database will create a model or a Java bean. Okay, and this thing would be returned to the service. Let's see what the service will do with this model, because we are going to return this model to the service. If we go to the service, you will see that, okay, we were here, we were waiting for the data, and yes, indeed, we return a model. And now here we are saying, okay, we are checking if this model is like the data inside the model, is it less than 0 or a greater than, I think, 100. If this is like let's say that like the temperature is 105 or something like that, like that means it's a null. And you can do whatever logic that you need to do. But right now we are just saying return null. But let's assume that we are not going to have this like weird data. We are always going to have valid data. What we are going to do, we are going to return the office temperature. Okay. Now that means we are going to return the model again. And this model would be returned to the servlet. Okay. Now the servlet has the model because we return the model to the servlet, and we can see that yes, indeed, now the request.set attribute, we are able to meet the first requirement for calling the JSP, which is right now this like an green. Like we now met the office temperature model requirement. Now, what about the second one? Now, still we have another variable called inRange, and we need to set this value for inRange. It's going to be the same time. The servlet is going to say, okay, can I handle that by myself? No, I couldn't. Then I'm going to ask the service. Let's see if the service is asking the service. And yes, indeed, here we are making a use of the service, and we are calling a method called isInRange. And if we go there, if we go to service, you will see that, yes, I have inRange method, and we are checking if the temperature is between 18 and 22, then we're going to return it true. Like if the temperature between 18 and 22, that means it's in range. If it's out of range, I'm going to return false. However, why I'm not asking the database, like why I don't go to database? Because I don't need to read anything from the database. I just go to the service, and here I would return either true or false. But this time, let's say that what's the temperature that we have here? We have 19. 19 is in, like it's in range, and therefore I will say the data is going to be true. Now this would be returned to what? Okay, let's like the service would like to so check, and then the service here would return true, and this would be go back to the servlet, and now the servlet is capable of setting the value of this. And now this means that we met the two conditions for the JSP page. And now if we go back here, you will see that, yes, I can say in range, and then I can go to the temperature JSP. Now let's run the file. And here we go. This is like all of these steps have been done to fulfill this request. Now let's see another way. This is like the normal way that I usually do, but there are like a better way to see that in terms of GUI. You can debug your code. Now to debug your code, what you need to do is this. You go to where you want to debug your code, where you want to start. It's always a good idea to start from the like the first line of execution here. And what I did here, I just press like on the line number, like I say, break your code or stop at this point and wait for my instructions. I'm gonna press on line 16. Okay, and then what I will do, instead of clicking on the green button, I will click on this one, which is debug mode or debug project. Now, as you can see, if I go to the browser is keep loading. Why it's loading? Because Netbeans is waiting me here. They are telling me, what should I do? You can do all of these actions. You can do, for example, step over expression, step into, and step out. Now, the most two important things is the step over. Step over, that means go from line 16 to line 17, and from line 17 to line 18, and from line 18 to line, like if you need to go line by line. But right now, for example, here we are making a call to the constructor of office temperature service. Do you need to go to there? Like, do you need to go to that file and see what we are doing there? If this is what you are looking for, then you can say step into. Okay, let's go step into. Yeah, step into, and you need to click 2 times. This is the first time, then we are here right now, and just say, okay, step into. And as you can see, they take us to the service method. And this is the same as what we were doing here. Like, okay, we were in the servlet, now we go to the service. Now we are on the constructor. Now, if we look here, right now, like the path value is null. But if I just say step over, now what's the value of path? As you can see now, the servlet passed the path of the temperature.txt to where? To the service, and now the path contained the data here. Now here I'm setting this variable, that the local variable, to this path. I'll say step. Now see, this is the path. Now it has the value, which is like that we know the path of this temperature.txt right now. And then if I say step over, this is going to take us back to the servlet class. Now we can say step over. Now what we are doing here, we are calling another method. Okay, now again, do you need to go there and see what's really happening or not? If you want, just say step into. Now we are here inside this method, which is called get current office temperature. And what we are doing, remember here, we say the server is going to say, oh, I couldn't read that. I need database help. And therefore we are creating this. And we are like the first call is for the constructor. Do you want to see that? Just say step into. And here we go. Now we are inside this. Remember, this is going to be null. But if I just say this, now the path is then where is the file is located. And this is right now, this local variable is equal null. But if I say step over, now the path is now equal to the temperature text location. Okay, now what we are going to do is step over takes us back to here. Now we are on this line. That means, do you want to get office temperature? Do you want to see that? Yes, we need. Let's go there. What we are doing, we are reading the file. Now, this is a very important thing. Don't step over, like, oh, I'm sorry, don't step into like Java service method. These are from Java. They will have a lot of lines of code, and you can skip that by say step out, by the way, like if you just entered like that by mistake. It's better just to say step over. And now here, if you see, like the line right now is empty. We don't have any data for line. But if I just say step, Did you see it? Like we were saying br.readline. If I just hover over line, you will see that, okay, I'm reading the data now. It's 19 and I'm closing the file. And what I'm doing here, remember, this is a string. I need to convert it to integer. Now that here temperature is empty, but if I just do that, you'll see that temperature contains the 19. Now, remember, always when we read data from the database, we need to create a model. Here we create the model of the Java bean. Now, this is my Java bean. If I want to go there, just say step into. And here we go. Now we are in the step into, and we are in this constructor. Yes, we have the empty constructor, we have the getters, the setters, and we are implementing serializable. Everything is fine. However, here we are going to say step over. Now look at the data. It's 19. This is not now is 0, but if I just say step over right now, this is 19 as well. And now what we are doing, remember, we are like creating the database model here, and we are going to return to the data. Let's go to step over. We're going to return that to the service. Now we are here on the service, and we have the model with us this time. And what we will do is simply we want to check if the data, like here we are saying, okay, the data is like, this is a business logic. Okay, this is going to differ from one project to another. But what we are going to do here is return this office temperature, which is here. Like we are returning this model to the servlet. Let's go say step over. And here we go. Now we back and we can set the data right now. We can say this condition is met right now. And let's say step over. And this is the second time that we need to set the data for in range. Again, what we need to do. Now, do you want to go to that method? Yes, let's go step all into. We are here, we are checking the data. Remember that we are sending an object of like model Java bean. Now, if you want to see the data of this, just click on the plus sign. You will see that, okay, office temperature is 19. Like we are sending the data here and then say next. And then, okay, now in range contain no value, but if I just say step over, now in range contain the value true. That means this value is in range, and I'm setting this to the JSP page. And now if I say next, and this would, okay, another next, this would actually take me to a thread pool executor. This is a Java code that's written to help us to run servlets. Now, if you feel like, okay, that's all, we are done, just click on the green button. Just say continue. And if we go to here, you will see the data being written. Okay. And I hope this was helpful as well. You have two ways to debug your code, and you need to give it a try by yourself, either this way or this way. And yeah.